Hello everyone, so welcome back to my channel. So today we will be learning a very simple landscape. So let me walk you through all the materials that you will need for today's class or today's painting. So we will need watercolors. Here I'm using Camlin Artist Green watercolors. You can watch the review of this paint. I'll just link it on the top, or you can watch it on my channel. Next, of course, you will need brushes. Here I'm using stationery brand brushes. They have a wide range of brushes, plus they are super affordable. And I have something for you. So if you purchase this and if you use my code Shreya7, you will get some discounts on them. Alright. Next, you will need 2 jars of water, rough cloth or a tissue. Next, you will need a pencil and eraser to sketch down your painting. And lastly, you will need a white pen to create the highlights on your painting. Alright, now let's get started and let's start with sketching the landscape which we will be painting. I've kept it quite simple. You just have to draw the mountains and a house and also a tree near the house. Okay, and the main focus of this painting is the huge tree that is surrounding the house. So you'll be able to know how huge the tree is once you draw it around the house. So that way you'll be able to compare like how tiny the house is looking when you draw the huge tree. So yeah, this is how we work with perspective when we are doing the landscape. And lastly, I will also draw a few fences around the house. I will just differ the sizes of those to make it look uneven. Now let's get to the painting part. So we will start with painting the sky first. So here I'll be using very light value of ultramarine blue, and at the bottom I will use very light value of yellow to paint the sky, as I don't want the focus of my painting on the sky. That's the reason I'm just doing the light wash of blue and yellow. So while that is drying, let's move on to painting the foreground. This time we will be using wet on wet technique. That is, I'll first apply clean and even layer of water. Once I've applied the water, I'll start applying the mix of yellow ochre and cadmium yellow. Again, I will start with the very light value of that color. That is, I'll add a lot of water to it to make it lighter, and I'll apply that on the foreground. Once I've applied the even layer of that color, I'll start applying some darker color to create a bit of depth and uneven texture in the ground. So once that is done, let's move on to painting the background land area. So I'll be using the mix of lemon yellow and yellow ochre, and I'll paint the land using the same color. I again used a very light value. And now while everything is drying, let's move on to painting the roof. I just checked and my sky area was still wet, so we won't be able to paint the mountains over there. So while that is drying, let's paint the roof first. So I'm taking my brown color and painting the roof. Now that everything has dried out, let's paint the behind mountains. So I'll take my sap green and I'll mix a bit of Persian blue as well as a bit of brown to make my own green color, and I'll start applying that on the background mountains. And once that is done, we will paint the foreground part. So I want that portion of the land to be very light. So here I'm just mixing my cadmium yellow with my sap green to make a lighter green, and I'm applying that in that area. Once that is done, we won't be able to paint the bushes because the area is still wet. So let's just add a bit of texture in the foreground. So I will switch to my liner brush and I will mix my yellow ochre with brown, and I'll create a very light value, and I'll just keep on adding this tiny little dots, making it look like grasses in the foreground, as the area was looking quite flat and I didn't like how it looked. So that's the reason we are just adding a bit of grasses and stones like structures so that it would look even more interesting. I will slowly increase the value, that is, I'll add a bit of black and brown to the same mix to make it little darker, and I'll start applying that color in the same way as we applied earlier. I'll also splatter some dots, making it look like there are stones on the ground. And that's it for the foreground part. Now we will let it completely dry. While that is drying, we will move on to painting the bushes in the background. So I will switch to my bigger round brush and I'll mix my greens. That is, keep in mind that if you want to make a lighter green, you will have to add a bit of yellow to your green, or if you want to make it darker, you will have to add a bit of black or blue to the same mix. Okay, so I'm just taking a mid value of green and I'm applying that color first in the background bushes using my smaller round brush size 2. So once we have painted the bush, what I'll do is I'll add a bit of yellow ochre to the same mix, and I'll make a very light value, that is, I'll add lots of water to it, and I'll start painting the biggest tree behind the house. First, I'll start with a lighter value of green, and once I have applied that color, I'll start adding a bit of depth in the tree by using the darker green color. Remember one thing, when you are adding layers of colors, make sure that you are not covering the underneath layer completely. Otherwise, there is no point in adding different colors on top of it if the whole area has to look one color. Right? So like I said, whenever you are adding different colors, make sure that you're not covering the whole area. If you'll notice here, I just started with the lighter value of the green color. Now I'm using the darker value of the same color. That is, I'm using the thicker consistency of the green color. Alright, once that is done, I will keep on adding a bit of blue to make it darker, or even a bit of green, and I'll start adding a bit of depth in the tree. And once you start adding different layers of Greek color, you will notice that the tree is coming live and it is looking so much more natural and beautiful. So don't skip this step. Plus, I would recommend you to do it slowly, don't hurry it. And also use a brush which has a really good tip. That way, you will be able to create smaller looking strokes and you won't end up covering the whole area with one color. Alright. So same way we will add a bit of darker value to the behind bushes and trees as well. Now let's add the final few touches in our painting. So let's first paint the fences. So here I'm using very dark value of my brown. So I've just mixed a bit of black to make it darker, and I'm using the same small round brush to create the straight lines. If you're not comfortable doing it, you can directly use a pen to paint the fences, as they are quite small. maybe you won't be comfortable, painting it directly with the brush. So you can always use a black thicker pen to paint them. Now I'm just doing the final few touches, that is, I'll just add more darker value to the bushes as well as the tree, and we will also paint the rest of the house. So I'm just taking very light value of ultramarine blue and I'm just creating a bit of shadow, as I want the house to be completely white. So we won't paint anything on the walls of the house, we are just creating a bit of shadow using the ultramarine blue. Next, I'm just adding a few more grasses in the foreground as well as in the background, but in the background I'll add the grasses using the green color. Now, if you'll remember, we have painted or we have drawn one more mountain behind the one which we have already painted. So we will paint that one. So I will create a very light value of the blue color and I'll just take my smaller brush and I will paint that mountain. To create the light value, you just have to add a lot of water to your paint. That is, right now I'm using 80% of water and just 20% of paint to make it lighter. And lastly, we will add the trunk of the tree. So now just wait for your painting to completely dry before you peel off your masking tape at an angle which is away from the paper, so that you don't end up tearing it. And I really hope you enjoyed watching and learning how to paint this simple looking landscape. If you did, make sure that you like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on the painting videos which I post weekly. And if you do this painting, then make sure that you tag me on the social media so that I can reshare your work. Plus, I'll be so happy to see you recreate my painting. So yeah, I'll link all my social media links in the description box, so make sure that you check it out. My Instagram handle is at the rate artist Shreya Gada. So do follow me there. I keep on updating about everything art related on that page. So do follow me so that you don't miss out on that as well. And yeah, and that's it. Now I'm just removing the masking tape. And once I peeled the tape off, I felt like it's a bit incomplete. So what I did is I took a black pen and I started adding the borders to the main subjects. If you already like how your painting is looking, you don't have to do this extra step. You can leave it there. It's up to you. Alright. So yeah. So happy painting everyone, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next video. Bye.